You can actually see me doing my pole dance for you.
I do. Hey, can you see me?
Yes,
Yeah.
I can.
Okay.
I'll never forget the first time I saw you on TV. I believe it was Brian Williams. It was something late at night with your sleepy bedroom eyes and you're speaking patriotic truth to America. And that's when I said, I am sexually fluid for that man.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing the real Mrs. Nance set you straight. So.
Oh, bless her heart. That's how we became the Hollywood stunt Mrs. Nance for events out here. Malcolm, I don't even know where to start. By the way, let's hear Donald Trump, or excuse me, yes, Joe Biden talking about Trump wanting to be a wartime president.
Trump keeps saying that he's a wartime president. We'll start to act like one. To paraphrase a frustrated President Lincoln, writing to an inactive General McClellan during the Civil War, quote, "If you don't want to use the Army, may I borrow it," end of quote. You know, we need to get in motion. Get in motion today what we should have set in motion weeks ago. Any public health expert will tell you that in a crisis like this, you can't move too fast. You can only move too slowly.
As a former Navy guy, former intelligence officer, you said Trump has abandoned the nation. Cuomo needs to show New York won't roll over. It's time to call up and deploy the entire New York National Guard to provide tentage, bedding, field kitchens, medical logistics at every major city. Make a show of it. No guns, only convoys and confidence. I mean, we are having to step in at the state and local level, aren't we? In place of the giant void of leadership where the commander in chief should be.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I'm pretty sure that I wrote a tweet to that effect where I said Trump has abandoned the states.
I just read it to you. You don't now that you can now that you can see me. Now that you can see me, you're distracted.
Actually, I like that in Peace 45 shirt. I don't think I've seen that one before.
Now we're like husband and wife. I'm reading something to you from the paper. You're like, yeah, you know what I just saw? I just read that to you over the eat your pancakes.
Yes, stifle woman. So yeah, but this is the truth. And Governor Cuomo is stepping up to be the leader that the other states don't have. And Trump has obviously lost his mind. He has clearly lost his ever-loving mind.
You tweeted to hashtag 25th Amendment. Now, how can you watch these things, Malcolm, and not be even more terrified than we already are?
Yeah, well, he's got this belief that the virus is over, and I think in his head, based on what he said, he feels that he can isolate the virus to New York, California, and Washington State. Yeah. And as I believe the phrase he used was, it's a geographical problem.
Yeah.
He has no clue. Governor Cuomo was right when he said what we're having now, which is just starting to go up the curve. We're nowhere near the peak.
Right.
Every state in this country is going to have in 3 to 5 weeks.
Yeah.
And Donald Trump is incompetent. He has no idea of what he's doing. It's all about his buddies and the stock market and him and his properties losing cash. He does not care whether American citizens live or die. That is very clear.
It's the same. It's the Ukraine story all over again. Mm-hmm. He's vindictive. You know, oh, New York's not being nice enough to me. Cuomo's not being respectful. Like he's going to, based on spite and on who's, on partisanship, he's going to decide who gets to live and die now. And, if he gets a quid pro quo, if he gets a, you be nice to us, it's got to be two ways. Like what?
Yeah, well, I mean, he wrote that in his tweet this morning, which they read live on air, and it was absolutely disgraceful. A real leader, whether they're in the military, whether in the civilian world, will jump up and say, hey, immediate action now. We have to absolutely take care of everybody. Let's mobilize every national resource we have. The very fact that the United States Army has not in its entirety been mobilized, been recalled, and are not establishing, as I said, they don't have to come with guns at all.
Yeah.
We need trucks, we need logistics, we need the ability to move people and materials. Field kitchens could be established in every hospital to take that burden of these now 24-hour nonstop trauma, emergency management shifts off of the cafeteria of these hospitals. These people are exhausted. We have an enormous amount of equipment, manpower and materials in the armed forces. Trump will not pull that trigger. And to be honest, I think he wants to leave it where it is so that he can have his friends profit off of it.
Yeah.
Naveed Jamali wrote to me this morning. He goes, he's not a wartime president. He's a wartime profiteer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, Naveed Jamali, the star of the first and hopefully not last Sexy Liberal in Seattle.
Pretty much, yeah.
We're hoping to get to New York in October for our Malcolm Nance one.
Yeah.
And,
Well, I'll be Max Headroom doing it virtually.
Yeah. We'll have it figured out by then.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. But Malcolm, I just talked to Abby Spanberger, Representative of Virginia, who's former CIA. I mean, you as a former intelligence officer, as somebody who has served their country in war, we keep talking about this is Iraq, sending our front line in without the proper equipment all over again, based on a bunch of lies. And it's as an intelligence professional, when he keeps repeating, no one could have seen this coming. Yes, you must. This is all in plot to betray America. This is him. This is another version of him believing Putin instead of our intelligence agencies. He believed Xi instead of our intelligence agencies about this threat back in January, right?
You know, when I wrote Plot to Betray, it was really about how he compromised national security for essentially personal profit and his friends, and one of whom is Vladimir Putin. I'm going to put out the paperback edition of this thing, and I'm going to update it right up till now.
Yeah. Are you going to include him writing to Kim Jong-un to offer him help when Americans are dying and we don't have...
And it's an example of how he would rather see his friends benefit from this rather than the average American. Look, when I served in the armed forces and I was dealing with horrible, terrible people on the other side of the world or wherever, terrorists all over the place and potentates, hey, I did it to protect every American citizen and by extension, the rest of the world. Donald Trump doesn't think like that. He does not see his job as president of the United States as one. He doesn't see him as a leader. He is standing back. Remember how they used to criticize Obama for leading from the rear? Obama let experts do the job. He does not want responsibility for the deaths that are coming, and he wants to put that on the governors. And so he's this whole thing of we're not a shipping clerk. Yes, the United States government is a shipping clerk. Yeah. It is a logistics hub. We have entire infrastructure built for this. He eliminated it.
We are up to an impeachable offense every few minutes now.
Yeah.
Right.
This is an impeachable offense.
Yeah.
Look, it should be very seriously considered when we come back down off the curve that he has abdicated his responsibility as president of the United States. And there's money out there somewhere.
The same thing as, Malcolm, we're going to find that out with the coronavirus test from WHO, which works perfectly great all over the world that we refused, I'm sure, so he can profit somehow. And then we got a test that didn't work. And that's why we're so far behind. And we're on the steepest curve in the world now. In the world.
And his crazies are all out there saying, not everybody needs a test now. Well, you know what? That's because we're past damage control mode. New York State is testing because they need to know how big the spread of the virus is in order to calculate a whole range of things. Testing is life in this circumstance. Trump does not believe that. He has lied repeatedly about the tests. We have millions of tests. They're going out. They're beautiful tests. That was weeks and weeks ago. He is a liar. And you cannot trust him to take care of anyone in the United States. But wait until red America starts getting hit. And I'm going to tell you, ground zero for him suddenly becoming a believer will be when Florida starts getting decimated because the governor did not close the beaches, let spring break go forward, let Disneyland and Disney World go forward. And they have one of the largest elderly populations in this country.
Yep. New York Times, I need the ventilators in 14 days. Only the federal government has that power, Cuomo says at a briefing. He says companies volunteering is not going to get us there. Then he says for the life of him, he doesn't understand the reluctance to use the Defense Protection Act. And then our friend John Everosas tweeted, Governor Cuomo making a great point. Move the stockpiled ventilators across the country to the areas hardest hit. Then as the crisis moves to the next region, move them there. Why is Cuomo a better president than Trump right now? I mean, this is leadership.
because Cuomo is a real leader. He's not a moron. He doesn't lie to his population, and he is taking it seriously. He is concerned about the population, particularly of New York City, which has half the cases in the world right now. The county I'm in, we have 3.
Yeah.
And they came up from the city by train.
Yep.
So we know how it's going to transmit. But like you said, this requires national level leadership. Joe Biden came out and made the exact same thing, same statement yesterday in his, when he was on MSNBC and CNN.
Yeah.
He said, look, we don't want you to fail. We want us all to succeed here. Trump only views this through the prism of the economy and making money for his friends and corporations, not in human life.
Let's listen to the. Please let us jump forward a few months. President Biden. Here we go.
As Americans, we may be physically apart, but we are truly all in this together, and you know it. Let me say something right up front. When we stood as one, this nation has never ever been defeated when we've been together, and we're not going to be defeated now. The pandemic of 1918, the Great Depression, 2 world wars, we overcame them all, and out of each crisis we emerged stronger, and we will again.
I think of telling my dad, right, World War II veteran, Nuremberg prosecutor, like, we just had to sit on the couch and watch Netflix for a couple of weeks. We couldn't do it, Dad. Couldn't do it. Yeah. It's too much. They told us Mom has to die because we got to get out there, and it's so insane.
Let me tell you. Yeah. I don't think you're going to be seeing those scenes from Vancouver or Rome where everyone is in their homes and at night are cheering the healthcare workers. If it happens, it'll happen in New York City or in Los Angeles. But we have not imposed a real lockdown. What we need is a nationwide 14 days. In Trump's mind, he has this belief. That he established a lockdown 10 days ago.
Right.
And it's in his head that the whole country has done what he wanted. He is clueless. He doesn't even look, his staff was popping positive for coronavirus.
Yeah.
And believe me, I've got people texting me every day that if karma was just and swift, right, he would get, would be presented. He would be presented with a challenge.
Okay.
Right. That would recalibrate his view of things. So all I'm saying is this: I don't want anyone to be sick.
Thank you. Me neither.
Right? It does not help our healthcare system.
You even offered your thoughts and prayers to the NRA, who's had to lay off staff and cut salaries and reduce hours. Thoughts and prayers.
Yeah. Listen, I know the severity of this. My wife, before she passed, was on a ventilator for 77 days.
Yeah.
I had 24/7 respiratory therapist crews come in every 4 to 5 hours and swap out. Let me tell you, by the way, if anybody, I beg of you, if you had even the most remote training in medicine, go see if there is a respiratory therapist program that is willing to take you in on an accelerated basis, especially former military medics. RTs, respiratory therapists, are going to become the lifesavers of this nation. They could probably shoot you through in about 4 to 5 weeks, just as the rest of the country is going to peak. But those machines do not operate themselves. You have to really be able to read the respiratory rate of the patient and all of the alarms. And I watched it for almost 2.5 months, 22 hours a day in my wife's room. That job is critical, and we don't have those people.
And
much less the ventilators.
I mean, Malcolm, you're breaking my heart because I, was there, not there physically with you, but do you understand that, what's happening in Spain and Italy, that they're trying to warn us? Do you understand what it's like to have to tell that patient, I'm going to have to take your ventilator? There's a priest that gave his up for a younger person and died. People are making those decisions. You're too old. We have to, you're not going to be able to breathe and you're going to die. I mean, it's
America is coming to a point, and I went through, you weren't here last week, but I went through a program called Biological Weapons and Terrorism that was run by the USAMRIID, the U.S. Army Medical Research Institute for Infectious Diseases, about 15 years ago, when we discussed all the time what we called nation killer viruses.
Right.
This is not a nation killer. This isn't smallpox. Okay? Smallpox would absolutely kill 30% of the nation. And when you give them the vaccine, it kills 3% of the people who get the vaccine. This is not that level of challenge. Your challenge, as you said, is to stay home and watch Netflix.
Yeah. And by the way, Netflix just gave a whole bunch of money to keep all their people working.
Yes.
So they're also a good company. They
have to, because and same thing with Facebook and all the rest of these. They have to keep those systems up in order to protect our healthcare system.
Right.
When you go to the hospital without an incident or without a reason that is not critical care, you are ready to collapse the system. And this is what we learned in that course. Two things. One, personal protective equipment. And number two, there is a breaking point where the U.S. healthcare system will collapse.
Yeah.
And when I mean will collapse, people will be left in the hallways to die. The healthcare workers will start dying at a rate that they cannot be replaced.
Right. That moment is going to be accelerated if he tries to open up the country. And I don't know how many days it is from now. The hospital system will collapse. Yeah.
New York State has just re-announced that if you are a retired nurse or retired doctor, within 5 to 10 years, they will give you emergency recertification. That's how bad it is.
Yeah.
So for those of you who are listening who think, hey, I'm 15 years out of service or something, go see, because they need people who can just do basic comfort care and critical care in these circumstances.
Yep.
Rise up, defend the nation.
Yep.
And right now, our frontline troops are our hospital workers,
Yeah.
and we need to do anything we can to help them.
Yep.
I'm about to donate $5,000 worth of food to the SICU, to the surgical ICU that took care of my wife, because now I understand how hard that job was to keep her alive. But in this circumstance, she wouldn't have lasted a day.
Yeah. Oh, no better words to leave on. Malcolm, thanks for being on that wall. Thanks for letting me see you on the wall, because now it's a whole nother level.
Oh, God.
All right. Love you, Malcolm Nance.
Love you all
There he is.
too.
Malcolm
Bye.
Nance, legend, man, patriot, legend.
Yeah.